Welcome in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. I know that many of you out there may have a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover as we roll into the Monday edition of the program. I am still out in Phoenix. I was at the game yesterday. I know over 100 million of you were watching at home. We've got an absolutely loaded Monday for you. I appreciate KFYI, our affiliate out here in Phoenix, where we are the number one show in the market, hosting me for the past several days. Buck Sexton is out all week. He is on his honeymoon with the lovely Carrie. I've seen some of the photos that they have posted from Instagram. If you're curious how Buck is doing, I imagine we're also putting some of that up at Clay and Buck. So I will be with you solo throughout this week as well. We've got a couple of great guests with you. We'll discuss what's going on with all of these different objects that are being shot down with Elbridge Colby and the latest on United States-China relations. Also, Tudor Dixon, Republican candidate for governor from Michigan. We'll talk about one of these objects being shot down in northern Michigan, right around where the UP meets the Lower Peninsula, for those of you out there who are familiar with the geography of Michigan. We'll discuss all that and more. But I wanted to start talking about the Super Bowl and the larger context and what it came to mean and does mean to me and many of you out there. And I want to start by saying condolences to the Philadelphia Eagles. I thought the late defensive holding call was one that by the letter of the law was a hold that if I were an official, I probably would not have called because I didn't think it was egregious enough to warrant the flag. That is my hot take on the way that game concluded. After it was tied up 35-35, Chiefs kicked the field goal to win, and a lot of the controversy has been associated with that call. Always a great way, in my opinion, to finish off the football season with the Super Bowl. And I thought Phoenix and the Valley of the Sun out here did a fabulous job hosting not only this event, but also the Waste Management Open, which is one of the most fun PGA Tour events of the season. But I wanted to tell you, some people out there listening to me right now, I understand. You say, I refuse to watch the NFL. I'm upset because of Colin Kaepernick. I'm upset over the kneeling. I'm upset the way the NFL has made a decision to, at times, embrace wokeness. And I understand that argument. Let me make a case for you about why the NFL is actually everything that's good about America as it pertains to the Super Bowl in particular. And this may be swimming a bit against the current thread that is out there and the tide that is out there. But I want to start with this. Sports on their most basic level are the definition of anti-woke because sports is about the meritocracy. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter who your mom and dad is. It doesn't matter how much money your family has. Ultimately, the rules, hopefully, are applied evenly, and everybody out there is able to compete on an absolutely even playing field where the goal is not equality. The goal is not equity. The goal is dominance. Football is America. The Super Bowl is the carnival of excess that makes this country great. Everything that is told to us now about the woke culture is directly repudiated by the actual on-field results. You either can play or you can't, and all that matters, by and large, is can you succeed? It is the definition of the meritocracy. America should look more like the NFL and more like the Super Bowl instead of less. And some people out there say, I'm going to turn my back on the NFL. I'm going to turn my back on the Super Bowl. And I understand that argument. But I came from the world of sports. And what I have seen is the toxic woke culture of America trying to make sports like it. And my argument is, We need to lean into the meritocracy of the Super Bowl and make America more like the NFL, where the best man, in this case, wins. But in the larger context of sports, the best man or woman wins, and the goal isn't to be even. There's a scoreboard, and at the end of the day, there's a winner and a loser, and we need to focus more on that in America. Competition is the fabric of American life. So I want to start there with the meritocracy. I also want to tell you something that doesn't get any attention. So Outkick is owned, the site that I sold to Fox in May of 2021, is now owned by Fox. And some of you may have seen me this morning on Fox News. I do a lot of Fox News appearances, and I'm out here doing Fox Sports events as well. One of the things that I don't think gets talked about enough, the amount of grinders that have to work to put this Super Bowl performance on. I'm talking about people who get up at 2 a.m. when it is pitch black and go out and make sure the cables are working so that you can turn on your television and watch the game. I did Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream and Bill Hemmer. Had to be up super early, got to the stadium yesterday in the pre-dawn hours. There were hundreds of people already working there. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, men and women standing out in the darkness to make sure that this event happened for all of you. None of those people get any attention. They are the fabric of America as well. Not highly paid for the most part. Not getting any sleep at all. Up for you, grinding to put on this production, both Fox Sports and Fox News employees. And I don't think they get enough credit for what they're able to accomplish. What about this spectacle of the game itself? It's capitalistic excess on steroids. It's amazing. The commercials. I happen to like Ben Affleck in the Dunkin' Donuts commercials. I'm a big fan of Breaking Bad. I like the fact that we brought back those guys. Credit to Greg Gutfeld, the new king of late night at Fox. I thought his commercial was really entertaining. To me, the capitalistic excess of the Super Bowl is about everything that America does. We do whatever the world does, except we do it better. And that ties in. Some of you may not like Rihanna. I happen to like her. One of her songs used to be my lead-in in my sports talk radio show. What does Rihanna represent? She came here from Barbados. She came here to the United States because she was talented and she wanted to dominate. America is the country that people come to when they are talented and they want to dominate because we create more global superstars than anyone. And I thought it was so interesting watching Rihanna, who appears like she's pregnant again, watching the spectacle of the halftime show, not on television, but from the seats, and being able to see the number of people that had to be brought out to put this stage together. I don't know what the stage cost, millions of dollars for basically a 12-minute performance. The best in the world, representative of Rihanna, come here so that they can make their livings. The most talented people. It's the meritocracy. It is the heartbeat of America. The Super Bowl and its carnival of excess, in its complete and total embrace of capitalism and the meritocracy, in its featuring of incredibly talented people, it represents the best of America. And I'm not going to allow the woke zealots to take it away from us. You know, there was a moment, and you may have seen it, in the pregame where the national anthem was playing and they caught the Eagles coach, Nick Sirianni. He's not an actor. On the sideline, so overcome with emotion that tears began to run down his cheeks during the national anthem. That's my America. That's the America I see every day, where almost everyone, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, whatever your background, wakes up proud to be a citizen of this country. And I think the media has focused way too much on divisive figures. I didn't see a single person kneeling during the national anthem, during America the Beautiful. How good was Chris Stapleton, by the way, singing that anthem? Now, the NFL is not perfect. There are things they do that I believe nod far too often to this woke culture that is the antithesis of everything that the NFL should represent. But my goodness, when you consider the overall scope and the reach and the impact of 100 million plus people all brought together to watch one game that is, importantly, innately American. Nowhere else do they play football. We created it here. It is, in my opinion, the heartbeat of American life. And so I was standing next to, in the seats, Jill Biden made the trip down. And I was talking with Bill Hemmer, who was sitting next to me, about the fact that Joe Biden didn't come. We're out here in Arizona. I said, you know what? If they put Joe Biden on this screen, the entire stadium would have booed. That's why he didn't come, because the Democrat Party has become the antithesis of sports and the meritocracy. It's why they showed celebrities all throughout the game on the Jumbotron in the stadium. Do you know the only celebrity they showed on the Jumbotron who got booed? LeBron James. Why? Because LeBron James has sold his brand of excellence. His brand, he's a wildly talented basketball player, but he has sold the idea that America is an awful racist place. And sports fans from across the political spectrum overwhelmingly reject that. They don't reject LeBron's talent as an athlete. He's clearly one of the best of all time. But they reject the message that he has sent that America is an awful, irredeemable, racist place. Sports fans are rising up and rejecting wokeness. This is important because sports is a reflection of where the country is. And if we had allowed this woke virus to spread to such an extent that it took over all of our sports, the culture would have become, I believe, even more anti-American. But as I experienced yesterday here in Phoenix, the carnival of excess that is the Super Bowl, I have not been more optimistic in a very long time that the woke fever is breaking and that we are poised. And I understand sometimes the darkness before the dawn can feel very, very intense. But I believe we are poised to break through this woke virus once and for all and kick it to the curb. And I believe it's going to happen in 2024 with the right candidate in a monster win. In fact, I'm writing about this right now, so I'm thinking about it a great deal. My next book is coming out in September. I'm thinking about what that looks like. And to me, it needs to reflect everything in the NFL. The meritocracy, the fact that sports itself is anti-woke. And again, I understand that some of you out there are furious with the NFL over the way they handled Kaepernick, over that. But here's the deal. You win by fighting battles. You very rarely win by giving up the battlefield to your opponent. And I believe that we are winning in a big way. And yesterday was an important metaphor, in my opinion, for how that battleground looks and what is coming for the future. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to weigh in a great deal during the course of today's show. 800-282-2882. I'm Clay Travis out here live in Phoenix, having an absolutely fantastic time. Appreciate all of you who are out there listening to me right now. Hope you took my advice and took the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes to be the MVP, by the way. I got both those things right. Did not get right on the over-under. I thought there would be fewer points scored than there were, but what a game. If you think about what's being taught in schools these days and you're concerned, you have a right to be. Are you worried about what your children or grandchildren are learning or not learning in school? If you answered yes, our friends at Hillsdale College have a free resource for you. Hillsdale College understands the importance of education for the future adults out there in our country. In the most recent copy of Imprimis, in fact, their speech digest that's mailed to more than 6 million households, there's a great article called Education as a Battleground, written by Hillsdale College President Larry Arnn. Right now, they're offering 10 free print copies for you to share and spread the word. This special issue provides a factual account of the issues in the ongoing battle over education, explains why parents and teachers, not bureaucrats or activists, should guide what our children are learning. You can claim your 10 free copies of Education as a Battleground by visiting clayandbuckforhillsdale.com. That's clayandbuckforhillsdale.com. Act now. Join the battle over education for our country's future. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. One of my favorite things, by the way, last night, and I do think it's important and sent a really interesting message about where we might be headed, was Rupert Murdoch obviously owns Fox, which was airing the game last night. And during the broadcast, they showed Rupert Murdoch sitting alongside of Elon Musk, and it set left-wing Twitter ablaze. They absolutely lost their minds over the fact that the guy who now owns Twitter would be sitting next to Rupert Murdoch. I saw one tweet that said, all we need now is Lex Luthor, and we'll have the three worst people possible all sitting together, which I thought was really funny. And our good buddy Don Lemon at CNN, let me mention this, by the way. Donald Trump shared the story that we had up at Outkick about this. The CNN morning show is hitting decade-low ratings, headed up by Don Lemon, who failed in primetime. Donald Trump retweeted one of our stories at Outkick by a good guy who's been killing it for us, Bobby Barack, one of the writers at Outkick. But Don Lemon said, it's a little bit frightening to see Elon Musk sitting with Rupert Murdoch. Remember, the anti-woke community is actually a fan of football. They're a fan of scores being kept. They're a fan of the meritocracy. The left wing in this country, they're really scared when they see two people they don't like sitting side by side who have the audacity to believe that you and me and everybody else out there in the country should be able to say exactly what we think. Play cut 13.
When you talk about reshaping truth in the media ecosystem and you see Elon Musk and Rupert Murdoch sitting there together, that gets people to wonder. And for some, it is confirmation that, see, that's why he shouldn't have done the interview with Fox. They're all in collusion out to get Joe Biden and liberals and the administration.
Were you that surprised, though, to see them sitting next to each other? I don't think I was that surprised. It stood out, but it wasn't like, oh, wow.
No, it seems like the most predictable thing in the world.
I was kind of surprised that they actually, wow, they actually did it, because it's a little frightening, I must say.
It's frightening for two people to sit next to each other and watch a football game. It's frightening. Think about what we're saying here. It's frightening for two people to choose to sit beside each other and watch the Super Bowl. I mean, this is where these people are. They're absolutely bonkers. And we have to fight them, and we have to combat them. And guess what? We're kicking their ass. Gun owners, you know ammo's become much more expensive in the past year, which makes it pricey to train and keep your skills sharp. Not if you got the Mantis X. Mantis X firearms training system. No ammo, all electronic way to improve your shooting accuracy. Attaches to your firearm like a weapon light. Connects you to your smartphone Bluetooth. It'll give you data-driven, real-time feedback on your technique, guides you through drills. 94% of shooters improve within 20 minutes. You can use Mantis X at home or on the range. Product now being used by members of our military and special forces. Great technology at an affordable price. Must have for every gun owner. Start improving your shooting accuracy today at MantisX.com. MantisX.com. No promo code needed. MantisX.com. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. We're making fun of some of the pearl clutching coming out of the Super Bowl when you see Elon Musk and Rupert Murdoch sitting side by side during the Super Bowl, which was airing on Fox. And I just want to build more on the battle and why I think we're winning it. First of all, Rupert Murdoch is an incredible media story. Because if you didn't have the New York Post, if you didn't have the Wall Street Journal, if you didn't have Fox News, and if you didn't have Outkick, there effectively would be almost zero marketplace of ideas in America right now. Because I couldn't believe when I saw this. There is an article right now in USA Today. Remember when USA Today called me a far right-wing extremist in an editorial? This is a column that USA Today has up. And by the way, I think USA Today, part of Gannett, I think USA Today is probably going to go bankrupt. You basically have to have the brain power of a 4-year-old to read USA Today. And it used to be that the reason why this newspaper had big circulation was, if you'll remember those days, you couldn't even stay in a hotel room without getting a copy of USA Today. And it was written for 4-year-olds in like 1984. And now it's written for people who I really think can basically not read. Like, it's actually gone downhill in its intelligence. And one of their sports columnists, and I put sports in quotation marks, said, this was his column. We had a 38-35 win, right? The sports media is what is destroying sports, right? If you want to, it's not the sport itself, because sports is founded on the meritocracy. It's sports media imbeciles like this USA Today guy. This is their opinion piece. Guy travels to Arizona, theoretically, to watch the Super Bowl and writes, Super Bowl 57 is the blackest, most woke Super Bowl ever. Sorry, haters. We had the black national anthem, Rihanna, 2 black starting quarterbacks for the first time ever. This wasn't the Super Bowl. This was Wakanda. That's legitimately, I'm reading. They can't even make this stuff up. That is from the USA Today. And I was like, who the hell wrote this? And I went and looked. USA Today has, as an employee, a race and inequality editor in sports. Let me repeat that. Sports media is what you hate. You don't hate sports. You hate USA Today because they employ, and this is why the company's going to end up going bankrupt, right? Because they employ untalented hacks. But they have a race and inequality editor in sports. That's an actual job title. That's the job title of the moron who I'm reading from that just had that opening paragraph. I'm not naming him. But let me tell you this. Sports and meritocracy. You know what the opposite of a meritocracy is? Diversity and inclusion. And I just want you to follow me down this primrose path here for a moment, if you would. What would happen if an NFL team owner actually gave in entirely to these idiots in sports media and to the far left wing in this country? What if somebody out there said, hey, I want a football team that perfectly reflects American diversity, and it's going to be the most inclusive team ever? Well, first of all, you'd have to fire a lot of black guys, right? Because the NFL meritocracy means the NFL's around 65 or 70% black. That's fine. The best man or woman should get the job regardless of their race. So if you're going to accurately reflect America, an NFL team should only have 12% black players. And it should be around 4% Asian and 20% Hispanic and 60% white. You know, you do the math on exactly what the makeup should be. Okay, well, what would happen if you did that? Your team would probably get its ass kicked because it wouldn't be as talented. You'd have white, Hispanic, and Asian guys forcing black guys not to be employed in the NFL. But that would actually be diverse and inclusive. What if you took it a step further, though? Your team would probably not be very good, but you could probably still win some games. You'd never win the Super Bowl, of course, because you're leaving the most talented people out from your team in an effort to have perfect cosmetic diversity and deliver the absolutely perfect reflection of America in your job, in your team. What if some owner out there said, you know, that's not good enough? 60% white guys, 12% black guys, 20% Hispanic, 4% Asian. Maybe you got to throw in a Native American there too, just to make sure the cosmetic blueprint's perfect. What if that owner said, over half of America's women? There's never been a woman play in the Super Bowl. There's never been a woman play in the NFL in general. Half of my team needs to be female. Well, then you would really be showing everybody, hey, look, my team is a perfect reflection of America. We're 51% female. We're 49% male. We're 62% white. We're 18% Asian, or 18% Hispanic, 12% black, 4% Asian, whatever the exact mathematical census data reflects right now. Your team would never win a game, and they might not score in the entire season. But my goodness, look how good the team photo would be. It would be a perfect rainbow representation of American diversity and inclusion. And it would be the antithesis of everything that sports represents. See, what I think a lot of you have gotten sucked into is you have allowed the media to make you think you hate sports. And there aren't enough people out there pointing out that the meritocracy is the opposite of this diversity and inclusion universe, this USA Today world where they actually employ in the sports media some loser who is a race and inequality editor in sports. An inequality editor in sports? My friends, we don't need an inequality editor in sports. We already have the Detroit Lions. I'm sorry, Lions fans. I'm sorry. It was probably a cheap shot. So many people in Michigan. We're about to talk to Tudor Dixon, and you're all listening to every word. And then you just hung your head in shame if you're a Lions fan. It's all right. My wife's from the Detroit area, so I know quite a lot about the Lions' futility as an NFL franchise. But you, an inclusivity editor in sports? Again, just think about it. A perfect representation of America on an NFL team wouldn't score a single touchdown. And what I think is important and illustrative about this example is if it's true in a highly competitive endeavor like the NFL, right? Every team's goal is to get the best possible players and the best possible coaches so they can win as many games as possible. Isn't that also likely to be true in larger business? And isn't, in fact, Joe Biden's entire administration a repudiation of sports? Karine Jean-Pierre got her job because she's a black lesbian. Mayor Pete got his job because he's gay. Kamala Harris got her job because she's a black woman. Ketanji Brown Jackson was specifically selected for the Supreme Court because she's a black woman. If you tried to run a pro sports franchise based on the same standards applied by Joe Biden's administration, you would end up with what we have in the Biden administration. The single worst collection of talent that has ever existed in any American cabinet and in any American administration. Because they are not interested in the best man or the best woman. They are the antithesis of sports. Everything woke turns to crap. And if any sports league decided to go all in on diversity and inclusion and equality and equity, no one would watch and all of us would hate the product. Instead, over 100 million people watch the NFL because they pursue excellence, which is the very foundation of American capitalism. The meritocracy versus diversity and inclusion. It's one of the biggest stories that's going on right now. And I would just say how much of your hate for sports has to do with the people who cover sports as opposed to the actual sports, which reject wholeheartedly, by and large, this idea of players and diversity and inclusion. Now, coaching, that's a different story. I think the leagues have to be careful about allowing themselves to be taken hostage by the Trojan horse out there in the diversity and inclusion universe of saying, well, this group is not diverse enough. But no. A meritocracy is what everything in America represents. And USA Today, which is on its way to bankruptcy because they are hiring race and inequality editors who want to watch a great Super Bowl game and proclaim it Wakanda. You know what ain't Wakanda? America. America is the best of all backgrounds. It is the meritocracy. It's not the best of one single background. We bring the best of all backgrounds together in pursuit of excellence. And I think that's an important lesson. And I bet you haven't ever heard anybody make that argument to you before. But I just think about it. The football team compared to the Biden administration, the Kansas City Chiefs are Super Bowl champs. But my goodness, the Biden administration are even worse than the Detroit Lions would be. Because everything woke eventually turns to crap, no matter how good the culture is otherwise. All right, I'll take some of your calls when we come back. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you agree with me. Maybe you think that I'm brilliant and my mom is right. Maybe you think that I'm an imbecile. All open. We believe in the First Amendment on this program. You can weigh in. Coming up next, 800-282-2882. We're headed up to Michigan to talk about what in the world Joe Biden's shooting down at the top of the next hour. And we'll also discuss China-U.S. relations in the third hour. But with over 100 million people watching the Super Bowl, we're having fun. What did we learn from the game, and what does it represent? When the going gets tough, can you count on big business to have your back? No way. We all know big business, especially the big wireless business. They're going to lock you down into multi-year contracts with huge penalties if they can get away with it. Not Pure Talk. No contract, wireless company, only wireless company to offer 100% money-back guarantee. Pure Talk's so sure you're going to love their ultra-fast 5G service. If you don't, they'll give you your money back. So instead of paying a fortune to Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile every month, cut your bill in half with Pure Talk. Then start enjoying the perks like a U.S. customer service team who'll make your switch easy, or you can go support a company that is veteran-owned and shares your values, and they have you covered with a money-back guarantee. Here's how you do it. Just dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck, to save 50% off your first month. Pound 250, say Clay and Buck. Pure Talk is simply smarter. Wireless restrictions apply. See site for details. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. A lot of you want to weigh in. We got loaded lines. Let's go right to them. Let you guys tell me what you think. JR, Daytona Beach, Florida, leading us off here on the Monday edition, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. What's up, my man?
Hey, Clay, if anybody, you and Buck, could step into Rush's shoes, you guys are wonderful. So thank you every day for what you do. The commercials of the Super Bowl, I thought were pretty awful, but you tell me your opinion. And there's a lot of us out here that are fighting like you wouldn't believe. So, we're not giving up on America, period.
Amen. Thank you for the call. Look, the commercials in general, the advertising industry is, I believe, the wokest community in America. And I think all those losers in the advertising community have given up on trying to entertain everybody, and they're so terrified of being considered to be offensive that there's very little humor anymore. I thought the Dunkin' Donuts ad was good. I thought the ad for I like the Breaking Bad guys. I thought that was good. Appreciate the feedback on the show. Look, Buck and I are just trying every single day to fight the battles that Rush would still be fighting if he were here. Rosanna in Florida. She hung up. All right, let's go. Tom in Salt Lake City. What's up, Tom?
Hey, Clay, thank you so much for your optimism moving forward. I do appreciate it. I had to get on the phone and wait patiently to get in. I agree wholeheartedly. But there's three issues I wanted to contest with you. But I think we're all served a tremendous football game. Both teams were absolutely excellent. I think Patrick Mahomes in particular showed what America, in my opinion, is about: grit, heart, optimism. That whole team, both teams. I don't think we need two anthems. I think one American anthem.
I agree wholeheartedly with you on that. Like the idea of the Black National Anthem, which I think, to be fair, was like 30 minutes before the game. I mean, they put it far away from the start of the game. On my old sports show, we actually made fun of it because I think the best way to deal with diversity and inclusion is often mockery. So we were like, why don't we have a Hispanic national anthem? Why don't we have an Asian national anthem? Why don't we have a women's anthem before the Super Bowl? So I think the way to ridicule diversity and inclusion oftentimes is to argue it's not diverse and inclusive enough. So what if you're an Asian person? I mean, shouldn't we play Gangnam Style? Let you pick your favorite anthem? I mean, obviously I'm being satirical here, but I need to get maybe I'll play that for you guys tomorrow if you haven't heard it. When they announced they were going to be playing the Black National Anthem a couple of years ago, we had fun with it on my sports talk radio show and put together what we called the greatest, most inclusive anthem of all time to ridicule and mock the absurdity of it. Let me keep moving here, by the way, but I agree with you on that. Dave in Pennsylvania. What's up, Dave?
How you doing, Clay? My brother to a different mother.
I appreciate it, Dave. What you got for me?
Well, I agree with you to the point of the journalists being a big problem, but I think
they're awful. I hate them.
I do too, but the cancer is metastasized through the whole thing: the NFL, the players, the teams, the coaches, everything.
But I think you're seeing pushback, Dave, because when I saw Nick Sirianni crying during the national anthem yesterday evening, and I saw the reactions pouring in this morning, I think most people are cowards. And I think when you're a coward, the easiest thing to do is avoid drawing attention to yourself. And I think there are a lot of people out there in the world of sports that disagree wholeheartedly with everything of this woke culture, but knew that they would be targeted by the sports media if they spoke out. And I think what you're starting to see now is a pushback against that. Joe in Ohio, you didn't like Rihanna's performance.
Hey, Clay, no, I wanted to ask you what you thought about her grabbing her crotch and then,
I get it. This has been a thing since Elvis Presley went on the show back in the day and they wouldn't let him swivel hips. The younger you are, the more you're going to like sexually provocative behavior. The older you are, the less you're going to like it. But this is a story as old as entertainment. I didn't have a problem with it personally. Welcome back in. Hour number 2, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate KFYI hosting me for the last several days. I'm out in Phoenix. Super Bowl yesterday. We reacted to it. Had some big discussions about the larger culture there. We now are headed up to Michigan, where Tudor Dixon, Republican candidate for governor, is. She is doing a podcast soon that will be a part, I believe, of the Clay and Buck Network as a part of iHeart. And she ran against Gretchen Whitmer in November. Tudor, appreciate you joining us. We wanted to talk to start about what got shot down in Michigan. Do we have any idea? And why don't we have a fuller picture of what exactly is going on as one of these unidentified objects was shot down, I believe, near the UP in Michigan?
Yeah, wouldn't it be great to have more information? Thank you for having me. By the way, I'm excited to be on. We're in Michigan, certainly wondering exactly what this was, but the whole country is. I mean, this is the fourth thing that we're talking about being shot down. These are being called objects. The first, of course, was the supposed surveillance spy balloon, but we don't even have enough information on that. And think about how bizarre this is when you already have Justin Trudeau, who's come out and addressed his nation. Joe Biden is ducking reporters still, running into SUVs, and Gretchen Whitmer is playing footsie with China, and everybody in the United States is saying, wait a minute, is this China? Is China surveilling the country on a regular basis? Or is this more than a surveillance device? We don't have that information, and that's why people are so beside themselves over this. But think about this. At the same time, you have Chinese corporations that Gretchen Whitmer is saying, welcome to Michigan. Yes, we are the center point of North America between Canada and the United States. Please come, have our land, take it, build your businesses. We would love that.
It's so bad for Gretchen Whitmer, by the way, that Jake Tapper at CNN is even doing journalism. I want to play you a cut of Gretchen Whitmer being asked, particularly in light of the fact that who knows where this object that was shot down is from, and whether it might just be Joe Biden overreacting now, his administration, because they blew it the first time we had the Chinese spy balloon come across the country, and now they're shooting down things left and right, whether they're associated with China or not. But I did think this was a good question from Jake Tapper on CNN of Gretchen Whitmer about her embrace of TikTok, given what's going on in the country right now. Listen.
We use TikTok on one device that has nothing else on it. It is a communication tool. We don't do it because it's fun, although some people think what I put out there can be fun on occasion. My kids disagree.
I don't buy that you don't have fun doing TikTok.
But the point is, we have it on one device that has no access to anything else, because so many people get their information that way. Whether we like it or not, that is a tool for disseminating important information, and that's how we use it. But we're always evaluating, because we want to make sure that We are protecting data in Michigan, and that's why we're always evaluating. But at this point, the way we use it is secure.
We might have shot down something from China over Michigan, and Gretchen Whitmer is fine with using a Chinese-based app to communicate with Michiganders and beyond. What do you think about that, Tudor?
This is how little she cares about national security. Chuck Schumer is out there saying there should be a federal ban on TikTok on all government devices. Now, you expect me to believe that Gretchen Whitmer has some secret TikTok burner phone, and she's like, look, the dogs are doing something that Michigan has to see. Grab the burner phone. We've got to do a TikTok. Give me a break.
It is really funny to argue. They have a special burner phone that only has TikTok downloaded on it. I mean, who is paying for this phone? Is this how many burner phones does Gretchen Whitmer need if she's using different phones for different apps? This is crazy. I mean, that makes no sense. It's a great point.
I feel a TikTok coming on. You got to get the burner phone. I mean, and the things that she says are so incredibly important. Are like her leather jacket fashion show. She did that. She dances with her daughters. And I'm meant to believe that there's constantly a staffer around her that's like, let me make sure this is secure. Let me make sure that this is nothing that the Chinese need. Because obviously this important information that is so critical that she has to communicate on TikTok is important enough for people in Michigan, but it doesn't matter to the Chinese. It's not that important. I mean, come on. This is a vanity issue here. This is somebody who wants to be out there constantly in the public eye, cute and adorable. This is not what a governor does. And it's certainly not someone who's taking national security seriously does. But look, she's not taking national security seriously. We've got an announcement today that, well, if you look at the media, it will say Ford is bringing a new battery plant to Michigan. Let me remind you of a couple of weeks ago when Governor Youngkin came out and said, listen, Michigan can take our sloppy seconds because I'm not interested in having a Chinese corporation in Virginia. And Gretchen Whitmer said, we welcome a Chinese corporation. It's not Ford. It's a partnership with a Chinese corporation that will buy property in the state of Michigan and have a company. Now, let me tell you something. China is not saying, yes, we are going to welcome American companies to buy property here. We don't own property in China, and we shouldn't allow the Chinese to own property in Michigan. But she has zero economic plan. She stated this from the very beginning. The only economic plan she had the entire campaign was she was going to offer people abortions. And that was truly, when she was asked her economic plan, that was truly what she came out and said. Now she's going to play footsie with Chinese. Beyond footsie, she's welcoming them into the state, and she's using their funny little social media apps that are sucking information out of state government into China. It's absolutely horrendous.
And I would think, I mean, you've got your heartbeat on the pulse, though, the pulse on the heartbeat of Michigan right now. This is crazy to me. When we did Friday's show, Tudor, I said, we'll certainly know what we might have shot down by the time we come on Monday's show. Since then, we've shot down more things over the weekend, again, including in Michigan. Isn't it kind of crazy that we don't have any idea what's actually going on here?
There's a couple of things that are disturbing here. We ask, well, how all of a sudden are all of these things floating above the United States? And the government says, oh, we tweaked the radar a bit. What? We tweaked the radar a bit. Yeah, this could have been always happening. What are these things? And to your point, are they dangerous? Are they something from another country? You know, everybody's saying, well, these are unidentified objects. And so people are like, UFOs. UFOs are obviously not always alien. But, you know, then there's the rumors that go around. It's self-propelled. It's just a cylinder floating above the earth. Yes, we should have some briefing from the government about this, because the reality is people are terrified. I mean, there really are people across the country that are like, what is happening? Are we going to get invaded? Are these things that could be holding bombs? Could they hold bioweapons? We just went through a pandemic. And this administration came in and said our number one issue is going to be to keep people safe, get people back to normal life. But they're not telling us when we have something that appears to be a major safety issue, why? I mean, if you have jets scrambling to shoot something down, you sure as heck better tell the American people what's going on.
No doubt. And that's a great point about tweaking the radar as well, because that to me means maybe the radar wasn't working. Like the whole purpose of the radar is for us to know about potential threats that could be in our airspace. And it's not crazy to think that when Joe Biden allowed a Chinese spy balloon to enter the United States in Idaho, go all the way across the country, and then exit in South Carolina, that China or some other foreign adversary might have thought, oh, I wonder what we can get away with now. And that is now precipitating these issues. But the fact that we don't know, coming up on basically 72 hours since the first object was shot down off the coast of Alaska, it's kind of crazy.
Right. This idea that suddenly they say, oh, don't worry, we've tweaked it a bit and now we can see a heck of a lot more, but now we're shooting things down. What do you mean you tweaked it? Were we using radar from like the 50s? And they're going, oh, actually, things have gotten a little bit better. Maybe we enhanced this a bit. So, yeah, I think it's irresponsible, but this goes along with the Biden administration. And then you've got the press secretary out there stumbling and fumbling over her words because she clearly has not been briefed effectively to tell anybody in the country what's going on, which I think makes people more uneasy when they see a press secretary who is so unprepared to answer questions and incapable, falling over her own words. It's like having Kamala Harris up there giving us a press briefing.
We're going to play that audio for people who haven't heard Karine Jean-Pierre attempt to explain what's been going on. I'll play that for you in the next cut. Last question for you, Tudor, and this is the real hot seat. Will the Detroit Lions win a Super Bowl in your or mine's lifetime?
Someone asked me, who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl? And I was like, the Bears and the Lions have not been in the Super Bowl for a long time, so I'm out again on this one. I'll let you know. That was a big question during the campaign, though. People said, we'll vote for you if you can make sure that the Lions win the Super Bowl. And I was like, okay, obviously. I mean, at this point, I just have to give up this vote.
My wife, obviously, as you know, is from the Detroit area. So the amount of frustration from Lions fans, I didn't really understand until we got married. And I bet you really understood it when you were on the campaign trail, hearing about the Lions all the time. To be fair, they had a good run at the end of their season, but they've only won one playoff game. Again, sorry, Lions fans, since the 1950s. Tudor, we will talk to you again soon. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
That is Tudor Dixon. When we come back, I will play Karine Jean-Pierre. You heard me in the first hour say, hey, if you wonder what a football team would look like if it was completely diverse and inclusive, it would look like Karine Jean-Pierre as the White House press secretary, except she'd be the quarterback of the team, right? Completely incapable of basic mechanics of the job. But my goodness, what a great photo op. She just over and over again. And the thing about Karine Jean-Pierre is she messes up questions that everybody knows are going to be asked. Again, I always say, I could walk out and do a White House press briefing right now, because in order to prepare for this radio show, I have to know, the top 10 or 12 stories that are going on every single day. So if you suddenly said, hey, Clay Travis, tap you on the shoulder, Joe Biden wants somebody competent to go out, I could go out and do a White House press briefing. Now, it's the worst administration ever, but I could do that job because you know what the top 10 or 12 questions are. Now, if I walked out there and they said, hey, there's a major controversy in El Salvador over whether or not there should be a referendum on the leadership of El Salvador. I'm just tossing that out there. I have no idea what's going on in El Salvador. I would be like, yeah, I got no idea on that. I would just be honest, because sometimes you do get questions in the White House press briefing you have no idea are coming. But when the government is shooting down objects, and when we're working with Canada as a part of NORAD to shoot down objects, that's going to be a question. Karine Jean-Pierre got that question. It did not go well. Get your popcorn. You're going to enjoy it. She is the quarterback for the Biden administration, and they ain't winning any games. I'll tell you that much. When we come back, we'll also, I'll just play that audio for you. I think you're going to absolutely love it. And that is coming up here in a segment to come. But first, I want to tell you all about our friends at NortonLifeLock. The internet is one of the best ways to stay connected with people all over the world, but you should always be on guard if one or more of those new connections comes across a little bit faster, a little stronger than you might expect. There's cyber thieves everywhere. You probably have seen the stories about all of your personal information getting stolen. So many different companies. It feels like every single week a new company is getting your info stolen. Remember, no one can prevent identity theft or monitor all transactions at all times, but LifeLock does a great job of helping to ensure that your personal information is not being stolen and used by others. Identity theft protection starts with LifeLock. Join now, save 25% off your first year with my name as the promo code CLAY. Call 1-800-LifeLock, go online, lifelock.com, use that promo code CLAY for 25% off. Again, that's lifelock.com, promo code CLAY. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. We're rolling through the Monday edition of the program. Reminder, Buck is on his honeymoon with Carrie. If you're curious how that is going, I see that Buck is posting photos every now and then from the South Pacific. He said he was not going to be on social media very much because he didn't want a replay of what happened in Asheville when he started trending and the entire state of North Carolina was upset at him, at least the left wing in North Carolina, because he had made fun of how many people in Asheville were still wearing masks and how many businesses required it as well. So Karine Jean-Pierre is currently speaking to the media. We'll bring the latest news to the extent that there is any. She has said that it is not a UFO, to their knowledge, that they have been shooting down, meaning aliens. It is, I guess, in some ways still unidentified. Although, again, 72 hours in, and we're still not getting very much information. Well, partly that's because the best of us are not speaking for the country. Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about NORAD, and predictably, it did not go well.
Why is the American military shooting something out of the sky over Canada?
Because it's part of NORAD. There is the NORAD is part of like it's a what you call a coalition, a consortium,
a pact of nations.
A pact,
okay.
Exactly. And so that's why we were able to do that. Again, we didn't do it on our own. We did it clearly in step with Canada.
She says a lot of things that aren't even possible, right? Canada? We did it in step with Canada. I mean, that's not even a misspeak, right? I don't think I've ever heard anybody call Canada Canada. And she is unable to answer the most basic questions about NORAD. And again, these are the things that you would most expect to be asked as the White House press secretary. I wish we could do a competition between me and Karine Jean-Pierre. I'd have no briefings whatsoever from the Biden White House, just by reading news coverage to know what is likely to be talked about. I would walk out, trust me, without a binder that I had to flip through to try to answer questions. And I bet I could answer questions even trying to advocate on behalf of the Biden administration. Because remember, the job of a lawyer sometimes is to advocate for positions that you otherwise wouldn't. The reason why I love the job that I have now is because there are no clients. There are lawyers listening to us right now like, I love the practice of law except for the clients. Because clients sometimes are awful to have to deal with. Sometimes they don't have their best interest in mind. They make poor choices. But I've defended lots of people. I've defended murderers. I could certainly defend the Biden administration, and I could do a better job than Karine Jean-Pierre. Because it's not that hard of a job when you're in the communication business to answer questions you would expect to be asked as a part of a daily press briefing. It's just crazy. Again, I think she's a perfect representation of the Biden administration in general and what happens when you get out there and hire someone not based on their actual talent, but based on what their identity is. Because there's absolutely no way to defend her employment other than saying she was a representative of the black gay community, and that's why she got this job. That's just the truth of the matter. And so I think everybody just has to kind of keep that in mind. And it would be fun to go out sometime and show her up, do a fabulous job, and then say, you know what, I'm going to retire. But I have just pointed out that talent matters and you have none. All right. Travis family did something smart several months ago. We got emergency food to store in our home from My Patriot Supply. We got their 3-month emergency food kit, one for each member of our family. Each kit comes packed with delicious meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, over 2,000 calories per day. Right now, you'll automatically get $200 in free survival gear with each kit you order. Products will save the day when crisis comes in the way of natural disaster, service disruptions, whatever it might be. Here's how you do it. Go to mypatriotsupply.com, get $200 worth of free survival essentials with your 3-month emergency food kit. Everything in stock ready to go with free shipping too. Go to mypatriotsupply.com before the next disaster strikes. mypatriotsupply.com. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. There was some discussion about Joe Biden. I think we talked about it on Friday, and whether or not he should do a traditional Super Bowl interview, which most presidents do. And because Fox had this Super Bowl, Fox News offered up Brett Baer. They offered up Shannon Bream, traditional journalists who host news-based programming, and said, hey, we'll let Joe Biden do an interview with either of these people. And or beyond, inside of the Fox News universe. Biden administration said no, and then they said they were potentially going to do an interview with something called Fox Soul, which I didn't know at all. The interview ended up not happening. So Joe Biden turned down the opportunity to talk to a huge segment of the United States population, over 100 million people, that could have been watching the Super Bowl, and a decent percentage of those people would have been watching the pregame when he was interviewed. But he said, no, I'm not willing to talk to those people, which I thought was arrogant. And I think it's emblematic of the world that we live in right now, where you're unwilling to talk with people that you think don't support you. And I'll explain why I think this is wrong. But first, I'll let CNN's Oliver Darcy explain that he should not. Biden was right not to do this interview because Fox spreads misinformation about him. Listen to Cut 14.
A lot of people do tune into this game, so it is a big platform that he is effectively giving up by not appearing on Fox. You know, in the Super Bowl this year, people are expecting maybe for over 100 million viewers to tune into the Super Bowl. And so by not appearing, he is giving up that platform. But I think his administration, and he has decided that he just does not want to appear on this channel that is really profits off of spreading misinformation and lies about his administration.
Oh, shut up. CNN, I mean, the entire news basis of CNN during the Trump administration was to spread misinformation as widely as possible. And so this idea that, oh, Joe Biden can't talk to Fox because they spread misinformation about him. Here's what I would say. The president should talk to as many people as possible to spread his message. Now, if the president had said, I'll only talk to you for 8 minutes, and I demand that all 8 minutes of our interview be aired, I would understand that. Because if I were president of the United States right now, I would. There are lots of organizations out there. MSNBC probably wouldn't like me. CNN certainly doesn't like me. They banned me for life from appearing on the network because I said, if you haven't seen this clip and you want to laugh, because I said the only two things that had never let me down in the history of my life was the First Amendment and boobs. That was like 5 years ago on CNN. I'm not kidding. If you want to be entertained, just watch the world come undone. When I said that on CNN, they banned me. I'm banned on ESPN. I think I'm the only person in America who is not allowed to appear on either ESPN or CNN because of some of the things that I've said that upset those networks. But I would go on those networks. I don't run and hide, but as part of going on those networks, I would say, look, here's the reality. I don't want to sit for a 2-hour interview and then you use 3 minutes of it. HBO, Real Sports, asked me to be on before. And I said, I think it's probably not going to be a very favorable piece. I'll do the interview, but I want to record the entire interview and be able to share it with my audience too. And I've done this with the Washington Post. I've done it with a variety of different media outlets. Hey, if you want to do a long-form interview with me and write or do a video interview, I want to be able to use it too so that people can see the context under which this conversation takes place. And so the idea that he shouldn't do it is, I think, totally wrong. And listen to Oliver Darcy one more time.
A lot of people do tune into this game, so it is a big platform that he is effectively giving up by not appearing on Fox. You know, the Super Bowl this year, people are expecting maybe for over 100 million viewers to tune into the Super Bowl. And so by not appearing, he is giving up that platform. But I think his administration, he has decided that he just does not want to appear on this channel that is really profits off of spreading misinformation and lies about his administration.
Why wouldn't you want to appear in front of 100 million people? We just had a State of the Union that was watched by roughly 25 million. And so if you actually analyze it, you have to speak to everyone. And if you're worried about how they might handle that interview, I totally understand it. I would be concerned about how MSNBC or CNN or ESPN would handle HBO. I just told you, would handle interviews with me. But the reality is you have to speak to that audience. And if you listen to Friday's show, you'll know that we were specifically discussing this as it pertains to a front page story on Friday in the New York Times business section, where they went after this show and accused us of spreading misinformation. And so I had our producer, Allie, reach out and say, okay, Brookings Institute, you are saying that Clay and Buck spreads more information as a show in conjunction with Rush and Limbaugh. We don't even know the entire parameters of the story that they did. But you are saying that they spread more information than anyone. That's the argument that you're out there making. And so as a part of this, why don't you come on their radio show? You can talk to the biggest radio show in the country, and you make your argument about what you think they are doing that is wrong, and you can talk to this group, this audience, these millions of people out there all over the country who are listening to us right now, and you explain what they've done wrong. And I believe, Allie, I have got their response right here because I think it ties in. But my point on it is I'm not trying to get in a position where we're running from them. In fact, let me read Allie's fantastic email to the Brookings Institute. I just want you to know, on Friday, we reached out to the Brookings Institute and said, hello. It came, Allie, this is a very well-written email by Allie, by the way. Hello. It came to our attention via a New York Times piece yesterday that the Brookings Institute ranked our show third in misinformation. In an effort to understand how we received this ranking, we'd like to invite the researchers of this study, particularly the lead researcher, Valerie Wirtschafter, on our show to explain the process by which they collected this data and arrived at the conclusion. We have availability Monday through Friday, any day this week. It would be about a 10-minute phone interview. And if you're unable to join us live, we'd appreciate a written response either way. And we're just basically asking for a opportunity to understand why they are spreading this story about us. It seems to me that it is eminently fair to require, frankly, but allow them on our end the opportunity to come on and make their case about why we're spreading so much misinformation. So I'm giving to Joe Biden the same advice that I am willing to follow myself, which I think is, frankly, pretty significant here. We're willing to talk with people who disagree, even people who spread misinformation about us. They got the email, waited 72 hours, and said they'll be back in touch as soon as possible. They have passed it along to the research team for their consideration. I bet they're going to run and hide because it's easy to spread stories yourself when we give them an opportunity to come on and talk to the largest radio show in the nation, the one that they are accusing of spreading misinformation, to talk directly to all of you, guess what? They turn tail and run. They aren't willing to do it at all. So I think this is significant, and we'll let you know whether or not we continue to hear anything at all from them about their willingness to show up and actually make the case to you that they were willing to make on Friday on the front page of the New York Times business section. So we'll let you know where that stands, but I wanted to give you an update in conjunction with Joe Biden refusing to talk to people who might be critical of him. We actually did the exact opposite. We allowed them the forum to come on this show and explain what misinformation we are peddling based on their study that they were perfectly willing to put out in the New York Times. In the meantime, born from the tragedy of 9/11, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation has been honoring America's heroes ever since. The foundation honors fallen and severely injured heroes and their families with mortgage-free homes. This year alone, hundreds of Gold Star and fallen first responder families with young kids and our nation's most severely injured veterans are receiving homes. More than 500 homeless veterans received housing and services last year, and in 2023, more than 1,500 will receive housing and services this year. This coming Memorial Day, all the brave men and women lost since 9/11 in the War on Terror having their names read aloud in a Tunnel to Towers ceremony in our nation's capital. Through the Tunnel to Towers 9/11 Institute, the foundation's educating kids in kindergarten through 12th grade about our nation's darkest day. Join Tunnel to Towers on its mission to do good. Please help America to never forget its greatest heroes. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's T2T.org. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Closing up shop here on hour number 2 of the Monday edition of the program. A lot of times when I take calls here, we'll give you an update on the latest surrounding the UFOs. Could they have been? I feel like we need the music in the background from Unsolved Mysteries back in the day. Remember that? That was a show that would terrify me. Because you would always think, if you remember that Unsolved Mysteries, you would always listen to it and that music, and you'd be like, man, I am terrified. Same way, I think it was the same host. When you heard America's Most Wanted, and every single time you watched America's Most Wanted, when you were a kid especially, you were convinced, like, oh, that person's going to show up in my house now. It didn't matter where the crime could have occurred. When you heard that theme music on America's Most Wanted or Unsolved Mysteries, you're not going to be able to go to sleep well. Let's pull that theme music. I'll play it for you in the third hour if you have forgotten what that used to sound like. Ellen in is it Allentown, PA? What you got for us? Thanks for calling.
I just want to say that you are woke. You woke us up again. You are representing 90% of America, and people are afraid to talk to one another, to bring up the subjects that is bothering everybody, and we really appreciate it. You're representing all of us. Joey
Ellen,
Jones.
I appreciate you calling in and saying that. Look, I really do believe that everybody hates woke people. I mean, I really do. White, black, Asian, Hispanic. And if you look at the data, that's true. Because what they represent is, as I said in the first hour, the antithesis of everything that America represents. You know, I was out at an event over the weekend, and one of my friends at Fox Sports, we were watching the Counting Crows perform. And then at the end of the concert, we were hopping in cars to come back to the hotel. And he said, hey, I want to introduce you to this guy. He's from California. He disagrees with everything that you believe politically. And I was like, no, that's a hell of an introduction. But I was like, hey, you know what? And then we hopped in the car together to drive back to the hotel. And I was like, as we were walking out, I was like, I bet if we just had a beer that we'd get along fine. Right? And I think we've kind of missed that era where I take my beliefs seriously. But it doesn't mean that I can't get along with someone else who has different beliefs. And this is not going to surprise you either. I think my beliefs are correct, And I think that I'm so good at advocating for them that I think I can convince a lot of people who might think I don't like that guy, that after they had a beer with me, they'd be like, you know what? I kind of agree with him. That's been my experience, is a lot of people just embrace this woke BS because they don't really want to interact with it, but also because they're afraid. And I get it. If you're out there right now and you work in a big company and you've got kids that you want to get in college and you're 57 years old, do you really want to go to war with the diversity and inclusion person inside of your business over what your pronouns are in your email address? Probably not, because you're afraid you'll lose that battle and get fired. I bet every single one of you listening to me right now, I bet if you're on social media, you have drafted something on Facebook, you have drafted something on Twitter, you might have drafted something on Instagram, and you deleted it because you were afraid of what people might say if you posted it. That's why I don't take for granted at all that I get to say every single day exactly what I think. My wife, she'll tell you, hey, Clay, the reason you've never needed therapy is because you get 3 hours every day on radio to say exactly what you think. Most people don't have that luxury. I walk out of this studio in a little over an hour with zero weight on my shoulders because I got to tell you exactly what I think. And a lot of you out there listening right now, I think it helps because you're just like, that somebody finally said what I believe. That's the number one thing that Buck and I get told when we're out walking around. People come up, thank you for doing the show. Thank you for saying what I don't think that I can say and keep my job. Roseanne in Florida, we lost her earlier. It's a privilege to have this opportunity. Trust me, I do not take it for granted. Roseanne, we lost you earlier. Thank you for calling back in. What you got for us?
It's my honor and mega super dittos of praise to you and Buck.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Two things I wanted to point out about Super Bowl. It was a major social event that almost rivals a religious event. I bet you there were hundreds of thousands of Super Bowl parties. I drove from Tampa to Niceville for the specific purpose of watching my grandsons watch that game. They are suddenly super football fans, and it was a thrill to be with them.
How old are your grandsons?
11, 9, and 6.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations on that. I've got 3 boys myself, and I hope one day to have grandkids because I hear the best part about it is you don't have to be with them all the time. You get to spoil them, and then you can go away, and they love grandparents because they don't have to spend as much time disciplining as parents. Sorry to cut you off, but you wanted to add more.
Well, another thing, too, the economic boom. I have a Tesla. I never use Tesla chargers. I have my own. But driving to Niceville, I had to go by Tesla and supercharge. If I'd driven my 4Runner that guzzles gas, guess how much gas I would have purchased? Guess how much extra food was purchased on Sunday for a Super Bowl party? It's a major economic boom for the United States, and nobody talks about it besides the city that the game is in.
It's a great point. Thank you for the call. Congratulations on those grand boys. It's a great event. I really do believe. And if you missed the first hour of the program, I'd encourage you to go back and listen to it and ask yourself this question. Are you allowing woke imbeciles in sports media to turn you off sports? Last hour next. Welcome in. Hour number 3, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton show from out here in Phoenix, day after the Super Bowl. Valley of the Sun did itself a splendid service with all of the people that have been out here. I have been broadcasting in the KFYI studios. Appreciate all of you listening in the Phoenix area where we have been for many parts of the last couple of years, the number 1 rated show in all of the Phoenix area. So we appreciate all of you out there listening to us across the valley and certainly around the country. Outside of this country, Buck Sexton on his honeymoon this week with the lovely Carrie. You can follow him on Instagram. He has been sharing some photos of occasionally of their honeymoon out there in the South Pacific. The weather is very nice. Appears to be quite nice beaches out there. He will be back on Monday of next week or Tuesday of next week. He's out on the honeymoon right now, so I'll have you throughout the course of this week solo. Want to also let you know, go subscribe to the podcast. You'll never miss a moment of the program. You can search out my name, Clay Travis. You can search out Buck Sexton. You can hear the conversation that we began this show talking about when I argued, and I think I made a pretty good case, that the Super Bowl is anti-woke and that many people in the sports media have managed to convince sports fans that they're more woke than they actually are. You should hate the sports media, not the sports leagues themselves. Again, encourage you to go listen to that. We'll continue to unpack. You can also weigh in, as many of you have, 800-282-2882. You can also send emails, be a VIP, as part of the Clay and Buck VIP subscription service. So, as we were going to break, I was talking about, as a kid growing up, there are a couple of theme musics that would come on, and you just basically get chill bumps, and you'd be terrified. One of them was America's Most Wanted, which I probably watched 100 times or more, and every single time convinced myself that somebody who was America's Most Wanted was right outside of my door. Here is what the America's Most Wanted, for those of you who remember, theme song sounded like. All right, a little bit scary. The one that really got me, though, was the Unsolved Mysteries theme. And given the fact that we are shooting down objects all over the place, this Unsolved Mysteries theme, and I know some of you out there, it was the X-Files that got you, but if you are around my age and you grew up in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, when this show was rolling, you probably watched it when you shouldn't have. You may have watched it when your parents weren't home and it was dark outside. And you thought to yourself, why in the world did I watch? This is what the theme music sounded like. Oh, man. I mean, I got chill bumps just listening to that. Took me back in time. I bet a lot of you out there. This is the perfect theme music for the topic that we are now discussing. We are on 72 hours since the Biden administration shot down a second object off the coast of Alaska. They then shot down an object in Canada. They shot down an object in Michigan. We talked with Tudor Dixon at the top of the second hour. We still don't really know what it is. Over the weekend, as the questions were coming in, a lot of people out there were saying, well, what could this be? This is from yesterday. NORAD Commander, Air Force General Glenn Van Herk refused, I can't believe this is real, refused to rule out aliens as potentially the source for what was being shot down. Listen.
Because you still haven't been able to tell us what these things are that we are shooting out of the sky, that raises the question, have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials? And if so, why? Because that is what everyone is asking us right now.
Thanks for the question, Helene. I'll let the intel community and the counterintelligence community figure that out. I haven't ruled out anything at this point. We continue to assess every threat or potential threat unknown that approaches North America with an attempt to identify it.
Yesterday, we hadn't ruled out aliens. I mean, this is one of those things. Remember how crazy 2020 was? That they finally came out with, hey, the government has tons of UFO files. The Pentagon's been spending tens of millions of dollars trying to identify this stuff. There's all these videos out there from fighter pilots, and they can't explain what these unidentified flying objects are. UFOs basically were real. And it was like the 10th page of the newspaper. That's how crazy 2020 was. Well, I didn't even see this on the front page of the newspaper. We got a guy in the Air Force saying, yeah, it could be aliens. We could be shooting down alien craft of some sort. Well, today, the brilliant, the esteemed, the greatest White House press secretary who happens to be a black lesbian in the history of America, she wanted to make it clear, not aliens. Listen.
I know there have been questions and concerns about this, but there is no indication of aliens or extraterrestrial activity with these recent takedowns. Again, there is no indication of aliens or terrestrial activity with these recent takedowns. Wanted to make sure that the American people knew that, all of you knew that, and it was important for us to say that from here because we've been hearing a lot about it.
Yeah, because the Air Force general said it could be aliens. So now Karine Jean-Pierre has to come out and say it's not aliens. The point here is, can we get the Unsolved Mysteries soundtrack going again? Can we play it right now? The point is, there we go. We have a legit unsolved mystery crisis at play here. And I know a lot of you out there are like, oh my goodness, you're having flashbacks, you're afraid. We have a legitimate UFO 72 hours in. So is this China? Who is sending these objects? Is it possible? Okay, you can pull it back. I don't want people unable to sleep tonight. Is it possible that, here is my theory, based on all this evidence, it seems to me the most likely outcome here is one of two things. One, China sent the spy balloon here, which we know they did, to see how we were going to respond to it, how long it might take us to recognize it. And given how long it took us to recognize it, and the fact that we let it traverse across the entire United States, they then said, okay, let's send smaller spy craft and see whether or not U.S. air defense systems pick it up or not. And that as a result, we have decided to shoot these down, which is ostensibly Joe Biden acknowledging, hey, I blew it when we didn't shoot down this Chinese spy balloon off the coast. And for those of you, including Mayor Pete, who was laughing about this today, to me, it seems quite clear that China is testing to see, in the event that they were to enter into a war with us, whether they could potentially deliver explosives, bombs, viruses, bioweapons to the United States in a relatively cost-effective manner without having to commit either men or substantial materials and deliver it in the United States as an attack upon our territory. And so that, to me, seems like the most likely explanation for what could be going on. Secondary explanation. And by the way, it wouldn't have to be China, right? Another American adversary could have seen how we responded to the Chinese spy balloon, and they could have decided to send their own version of that into the United States. So that's not crazy. I think that's one legitimate possibility about what's going on right now. Secondary is the Biden administration is so gun shy now, so embarrassed by the way that they responded to the Chinese spy balloon, that they now are shooting down all sorts of things that truly are not dangerous to the United States. They have upped the radar examination, and they are identifying more objects. And if they can't immediately tell what those objects are, they are shooting them down in the event that they were also foreign adversarial-based UFOs. And the fact that we're now 72 hours in, 72 hours into, essentially, the first object being shot down off the coast of Alaska, how is it possible that we don't know exactly what it is after 72 hours? This administration promised that they would be the most transparent in American history. Yet they have consistently been the least transparent. They have failed to share basic information that I think the American people would have a willingness and a desire to know. I told you on Friday, as we finished the final hour of the show, I said, we'll be back on Monday. Hope you guys all enjoy the Super Bowl. Surely we will know by Monday what exactly this was. And here we sit 72 hours after those shoot downs occurred, And they still have not provided us any definitive notice of what these objects may be. And in fact, they've done the opposite because they've trotted out an Air Force general to say it could be aliens. And over the weekend, if you have friends who closely follow the news, I'm sure many of you do, you probably had text chain conversations. You might have had face-to-face conversations where people are like, hey, evidently we're being invaded by aliens. My own wife, I'm going to put her out there, she keeps saying, I think these are missiles. I think they're testing to see whether or not these things can reach here, not necessarily trying to explode them here, but just seeing whether they can deliver the payload devices this way. This is China testing it. I think there's probably some of you out there that would buy into that hypothesis as well. But in the absence of direct clarifying information, conspiracies develop, theories take root, and the story runs far ahead of the facts. So why can they not provide a legitimate explanation for exactly what's going on? I think it's a very fair question, and one that we will discuss with Elbridge Colby coming up. He's an expert on China, U.S. relations, Taiwan. How could all of this tie together? What exactly is going on? We will discuss all of that as we move through the third hour of the program today. And we certainly appreciate all of you out there who are listening as we are powering through the program. And I want to tell you, I got brand new MyPillows. The MyPillow 2.0 arrived at the Travis household right before I left to come out to Arizona for the last week. And as soon as I finish this program today, I am hopping in a car, headed straight to the airport, and I can promise you I cannot wait to get back home, climb into my bed on the MyPillow sheets, and try out the MyPillow 2.0. It has the patented adjustable fill of the original MyPillow, also has exclusive fabric made with a temperature-regulating thread. MyPillow 2.0, buy one, get one free for a limited time with our names as the promo code Clay and Buck. MyPillow 2.0 made with a temperature-regulating technology, 100% made in the USA. Pillow comes with a 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. You can go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener special square to get this buy one, get one free offer on the MyPillow 2.0. All you have to do is enter the promo code Clay and Buck. You can also call 800-792-3269 to get your MyPillow 2.0 today. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. We're rolling through the Monday edition of the program and discussing the fact that we're now 72 hours in and still don't have a real legitimate idea of exactly what's happening with what Joe Biden has decided to shoot down, which seems fairly significant as we continue to roll through and discuss these unidentified flying objects, particularly because, you know, you're getting a lot of ridiculous arguments out there. But when Chuck Schumer says that Joe Biden humiliated the Chinese by shooting down a spy balloon, I just want you to think about this. Take yourself outside of being an American, right? And take yourself outside of, thinking about this from a Chinese perspective. And just think about this from the perspective of a citizen of another country in this world that is sitting and watching this story between the United States and China. If you were given the option, China penetrated American airspace, flew a Chinese spy balloon over military bases all the way from Idaho through Montana, down across the central part of this country, all the way across the Carolinas, and then exited their spy balloon on the other side of South Carolina. It was shot down the Atlantic Ocean there. Would you be like, man, that was humiliating for China? They penetrated American airspace, and they were able to cover the entire continental United States, entering in the far northwest and exiting in the southeast of the United States, gaining potentially valuable intelligence along the way. And there were no consequences to them until they reached the Atlantic Ocean, whereupon that spy balloon was shot down, making it difficult to recover what was there because it immediately went into the water. Would you be like, man, that really humiliated China? Or would you think, that sounds kind of humiliating to the United States? that China was able to pull this off. Well, if you think Joe Biden humiliated China, you are Chuck Schumer, and listen to this. Cut 3.
Look, I think the Chinese were humiliated. I think the Chinese were caught lying, and I think it's a real step back for them. Yes, I think they're going to have to. I think they're probably going to have to get rid of it or do something because they look really bad. And they're not just doing the United States. This is a crew of balloons. We saw one in South America. They've probably been all over the world.
Okay, so it's humiliating to China. Here is an idea that I floated. You might have seen it on Fox News Sunday. I didn't spend a lot of time developing it, but I'm going to ask Bridge Colby about it here in the next segment. The only thing that I think could be a mess for China associated with the Chinese spy balloon is this. Is there a split between the Chinese military and Xi Jinping, right? Is it possible that the authoritarian dictator leader of China is not as all-powerful as we thought, and that there are parts of the Chinese military that are actively trying to make China's supreme leader look bad? Because we know that all of the protests that emerged over COVID-0 in China finally forced Chairman Xi to change his story there, and China opened back up. And remember how all the same people out there, the left-wingers who've been trying to say, oh, there's no way to live with COVID. China's in trouble now. No, China finally opened up after like 3 years. Almost no one had gotten any kind of COVID shot. And what happens? What happens is, by and large, no real impact. China's just open now, and it proves that any lockdown strategy, the Dr. Fauci's of the world, we followed China's lead and we blew it. But is it possible that has destabilized China somewhat, and they were trying to embarrass Chairman Xi in advance of potentially an American state visit with Anthony Blinken prepared to go there? The timing, I would say, suggests that Chinese leader Chairman Xi is not as powerful as we have been told. Just think about that. I'll ask Bridge Colby about it next. In the meantime, if you own a business and you made it through COVID, you could be eligible to receive a payroll tax rebate of up to $26,000 per employee. No loan, no payback, just a refund of your taxes. How do you get your business this refund money? Go to getrefunds.com. Their tax attorney specialist, little-known payroll tax refund program. They'll do all the work, no charges up front, just share a percentage of the cash they get back with you. Businesses of all types can qualify, so much so that getrefunds.com has already returned over $3 billion. Here's how you get hooked up. No cost. Just go to getrefunds.com, click on Qualify Me, answer a few questions. Payroll tax refund only available for a limited amount of time. Don't miss out. Go to getrefunds.com. No risk, high reward. Getrefunds.com. Welcome back in. Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Joined now by Elbridge Colby, who is an expert on China and United States relations, and he also is the co-founder and principal of the Marathon Initiative. He is a former U.S. Assistant Deputy, it's a tough word to say, Secretary of Defense for Strategy and Force Deployment. His latest book, The Strategy of Denial, American Defense in an Age of Great Power Conflict. All right, Bridge, appreciate you taking the time to join us. I know you've been on the show before. What in the world do you think is the most likely explanation for what has been going on the last 72 hours as we have now shot down at least 3 different still unidentified flying objects?
Great to be with you, Clay. Always a pleasure to be on the show. I mean, I have to say the most likely explanation is that it's part of the Chinese surveillance program, but I don't have ironclad confidence that that's what it is. I mean, it could be other countries. I mean, it's not beyond the pale that it's the Russians, maybe even the North Koreans is not out of the realm of possibility. It could be private companies. I mean, some of the things they're talking about, I saw Kirby on the news earlier this morning. You know, he was saying they haven't even been able to dredge these things up. I mean, a lot of them are really forbidding places, and a number of them are quite a bit smaller than the massive Chinese surveillance balloon. So I think the most likely is that it's part of the same Chinese program, but I don't think that's open and shut.
When should we know? I'm kind of stunned that we shot this one down off the coast of Alaska 72 hours ago, and we still don't really have an explanation from the administration. Do you think they have a really good idea what this is? Do you think they don't? Are they being level with us?
I don't know. My impression is that they don't fully understand it. I mean, I was struck by this sort of, General Van Herk, the Northcom commander. I mean, he said there's been real gaps in our understanding of what's going on in our airspace over the last few years. So some of this, I think, is, somehow we've managed to get improved sense of what's going on. I mean, maybe that's fiddling with the radar. I don't know what that, maybe there's new technologies. But some of this is obviously, the Chinese, we know, have embarked on a massive balloon building program. So I think that's a reasonable suspicion. But I mean, I don't think we've still recovered a good chunk, at least, or maybe most of the original balloon, a week and a half later. And I mean, and that's in relatively, balmy waters off the coast of the Carolinas rather than off the Yukon or Alaska. So my guess is we're not entirely sure yet.
Chuck Schumer came out and said it was humiliating for the Chinese to have their spy balloon shot down off the coast of South Carolina in the Atlantic Ocean. Do you think it's viewed that way by the Chinese? How would you assess the relative humiliation factors between China sending a balloon across the whole United States and us shooting it down after it left the continental United States?
Well, I think it's much worse for us to have a balloon cross our entire, country and Canada too, in our territorial airspace, and then, after like almost a week, then we shoot it down, once. I mean, and it's not one of the things that I assume the administration and the government had known about it for the first few days, but it's not entirely clear to me that we knew about it for the first few days. And this is a very large balloon. I mean, it's like 3 football fields, I think, the balloon, and the the sort of thing it was holding on below it, the surveillance stuff basically was like the size of a couple of buses. So I think that's that's definitely not a win for our side. But of course, this is far from over, this whole dynamic.
Does this impact Taiwan in a significant way in your mind? Are we learning anything based on where Chinese-American relations are right now as it pertains to this spy balloon and potentially these additional unidentified flying objects in the event that they are from China, in terms of what it might mean for the United States and China squaring off over Taiwan?
I think it does tell us something very, very important and interesting and disturbing, which is just the global reach of the People's Liberation Army. I mean, I think there's a sense, and a lot of the discussion and the news reporting is really focused on Taiwan. But I think that's a mistake, because the Chinese military has been dramatically increasing its capability over the last few years, and in ways where it can not just surveil, but potentially threaten to attack the American homeland. So this is not simply about Taiwan in some narrow, localized sense. This is about the Chinese flying a massive balloon and potentially doing so without our even knowing for several days over American territorial airspace. And what was it doing? Well, I mean, it was flying over our ICBM base in Montana. It was also apparently flying over or nearby Whiteman Air Force Base, the home of the B-2 bomber, the most, the kind of one of the crown jewels of our military. So, I mean, and this is not alone. I mean, a year plus ago, we had the Chinese testing hypersonic missiles that, according to the newspapers, some of our scientists didn't even know that some of their capabilities or maneuvers were theoretically possible. So what I think this says is that China is really not just a kind of a narrow, threat in terms of Asia, or the Western Pacific or the First Island Chain or Taiwan. It's also very much about the ability to threaten the homeland. And I think that also tells us in a more fundamental way the stakes. The stakes are about something well beyond Asia. I mean, this is a country that can do something in a sense that the Soviets never really tried. I mean, it was a long time ago now. But I mean, where it's got an economy that's of equivalent size, it's flying balloons, it's flying satellites over us. It has long-range aviation. It now has more nuclear missile launchers than we have, long-range missile launchers. Let's not get mixed up about what this is. This is a country with global reach and global ambitions.
Let's talk. Last question for you. I was talking about this in the last segment. Is there a possibility that this actually reflects weakening of Chairman Xi's absolute power in China, and that this could be a Chinese military-driven plan that he's not necessarily signing off on, given the timing with Secretary Blinken and the potential state visit? Or do you think that this is Chairman Xi himself who ordered this Chinese spy balloon? How would you assess the internal palace intrigue, so to speak, of China and what that might tell us about this situation?
It's really hard to know. I mean, I find it hard to believe that there are military elements, in the PLA that are willfully bucking Xi Jinping. I mean, he's really consolidated power over the last few years, and it's a party army. It's really a Communist Party army. So, but it is puzzling, Clay. Why would Xi Jinping do this now? Because the Chinese are on a bit of a charm offensive. I think they're on their back feet over the economy, zero COVID, decreasing, sort of popularity around the world for China. So it is puzzling. I mean, I could see, I think there's one explanation, which could be they're probing us, they're challenging us. I mean, almost like a kind of a negotiating style where you kind of put a dig into the opponent and kind of like humiliate him a little bit to see how he reacts and push him back. That's a tried and true Chinese and communist negotiating tactic. It's also possible that they didn't fully appreciate what the response was going to be or fully coordinate how everything was going to go. But I think that's, it's hard to know. But I think that, we have to step back and say, look, we can't know what's going on in Xi Jinping's head. We can't know what's going on inside the Standing Committee of the Central Committee of the Politburo of the People's Republic of China. We have to deal with what the reality is. They're flying balloons over our airspace. They're continuing an unprecedented military buildup. The Leopard has not fundamentally changed its spots. Doesn't mean we have to be willfully aggressive or provocative, but it means we shouldn't get distracted and we shouldn't, go for this kind of compete while cooperating. We should make sure that we are operating from a position of strength. That is what Xi Jinping, that is what the People's Republic of China government respects. And from that position of strength, we can take a more moderate position. But we have to be tough and hawkish in order to get to that place.
Bridge Colby, if you like this conversation, Buck Sexton, Bridge Colby had a long-form discussion. You can find that in the Clay and Buck podcast feed. Appreciate the time, my man.
Great to talk to you.
When we come back, I'll take some of your calls, close out the Monday edition of the program, 800-282-2882. But I want to tell you, gun owners interested in keeping their skills sharp have started using a cool new device called the Mantis X. It's a firearms training system, no ammo, all electronic way to train. Mantis X attaches to your firearm like a weapon light, connects to your smartphone with a Bluetooth connection, and it'll give you data-driven, real-time feedback on your technique and guide you through drills and courses. Nearly everyone that uses the Mantis X improves with just 20 minutes of training. In fact, product now being used by the U.S. military and special forces. Great technology at an affordable price. The Mantis X is a must-have for every gun owner. If you believe in your Second Amendment rights, you must also act on those Second Amendment responsibility to be competent in your shooting ability. Start improving your shooting accuracy today. Get yours at mantisx.com. That's MANTISX.com. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show, closing up the Monday edition of The Shop. Reminder that Buck is on his honeymoon this week with Carrie, and I'll be in solo. I've had a tremendous time out here in Phoenix. Did the show Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and now Monday out here in our KFY studios. I want to thank everybody in Phoenix who has been so fabulous in their hospitality. I've had a phenomenal time out here. Looking forward to getting back to Nashville, my hometown, to be able to do the show for the rest of the week. And encourage you, if you missed any of today's shows, to go out there and make sure that you download the podcast and don't miss a single moment. And I started off the show, and I just want to reiterate this one more time. Yesterday was obviously the Super Bowl. We'll find out 100 million plus what the total number is of people who watched the Super Bowl. And what I would tell you is the Super Bowl represents everything that America does great. It is a meritocracy. It is populated and made possible by behind-the-scenes grinders who worked their butts off. I saw them all throughout this week. It is a celebration of capitalistic excess, whether it is the commercials, whether it is all the trips out to buy junk food, frankly, to celebrate, including, I'd like to thank my mom and dad for watching our kids the past weekend. My wife's out here with me. They took my 8-year-old out to buy a bunch of junk food for the Super Bowl, and I imagine that there are a lot of grandparents out there that regularly do the same. Kids get opportunities they otherwise would not when grandma and grandpa are around. And so I'm sure that we are going to return home and find out that the boys had quite a few treats, but it is a celebration of capitalistic excess that brings everybody together. White, black, Asian, Hispanic. Now, I think there are aspects of the Super Bowl that we get wrong, right? The Black National Anthem, I think, is ridiculous. Tomorrow we'll play you my new anthem that we designed that would make also Hispanics, Asians, women. I think we might have had Native Americans trying to cover every single fabric of the United States, which, is the ostensible purpose of the anthem itself. to represent everyone, but we can have a lot of fun with that. I thought even Rihanna and her performance represents what stands for so much as the promise of America, because she moved from Barbados here to become a global iconic superstar. And that is true all over this world. The best place you can come to make yourself a global superstar and to transcend the country of your birth is still the United States. And football is an American invention. It is something that America almost exclusively plays. And so I am not willing to allow the Super Bowl to be taken over by woke imbeciles when sports itself is the very definition of the meritocracy. Also want to give a shout out. I thought they did a really good job. Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson, who were calling this game. And we had unbelievable weather out here. And I did tip for those of you who may at some point find yourself in Phoenix. It's a tough hike, really tough hike, I think. I mean, because it's a lot of perpendicular nature. There's lots of rocks, lots of different climbing required on this trip. But my goodness, the Camelback hike to the top. I posted a few of these photos up on Instagram. My wife and I made the trip up that mountain on Saturday. And it was a heck of an experience. Takes a couple hours, might take 3 hours. You might be able to go up faster. Some people go down and then turn around and go back up. But those guys are beasts because I can feel it in my legs even today. But it is you got to make sure that you have your water for sure in order to make it all the way up to the top. But it was pretty outstanding. So I want to thank everybody out in the Phoenix area for their support. Encourage you to go download the podcast. Make sure that you don't miss a single moment. We have a lot of people who still want to weigh in. I told you that we would close out the show discussing everything out there. Craig in Tucson, what you got for me, man?
Yeah, you mentioned the second option, and there was a third one that I think you overlooked, and I haven't heard anybody else mention this. I thought about this starting on Friday when they announced another object shot down. I believe that it's possible that the Defense Department is launching objects that they can shoot down in an attempt to make Joe Biden and the administration look like they have more testosterone than they actually do. And it was Joe Biden who said last week that half the women in his administration are women. I believe half the men are women, too.
Thank you for the call. I don't necessarily disagree with the idea, the premise that Biden could be doing this because it makes him look stronger. The difference is I think they wouldn't be saying that they didn't know where these objects came from if they were in any way involved from the United States government itself. So, look, I think there are a lot of different hypotheses. For those of you out there who missed it, my theory was, one, it's China or another adversarial country. Two, we have just upped our overall surveillance to such an extent that we are shooting down completely innocuous objects now, i.e. this could be weather balloon-like, where it's not actually a threat. So the fact that we don't know 72 hours later, I think is pretty crazy. Chuck in Kentucky, what you got for us?
Killing us out to see where they can hit us the worst, and they ain't worried about taking out infrastructure. They're trying to figure out a way they can kill another 100 million Americans with another virus or something. Because we got our commander in chief supposedly laughing about it like it's not that serious.
Yeah, I get you. I'm fired up about it. If you listen to me on Friday, I said, can you imagine if this were the 1980s and Russia had just sent a spy balloon across the entire United States? Would Ronald Reagan have claimed it as a victory that we shot it down once it got over the Atlantic in South Carolina? Of course not. Would George Bush Sr. have claimed that as a victory? No, it would have been a tremendous embarrassment that Russia was able, the Soviet Union at the time, to put its spycraft into our airspace and that there was no restriction from their ability to go across the entire continental United States. It would have been a tremendous embarrassment, a Sputnik-like moment in the Cold War with Russia. Grant in Bismarck, North Dakota, closing out shop today on the Monday edition of the program.
I just have no trust
in anything going on, and I like listening to you guys because it seems like what we hear and what we forecast eventually comes true with you two, even though Mr. Buck isn't there. And I just have a hard time believing anything coming out of anywhere, and it's hard to raise a family in this environment.
I don't doubt it at all. Thank you for the call. We're closing up the show here. I think what you're hitting on is this administration has given us no reason to trust them. Joe Biden hasn't extended a hand in any way. He's been an adversarial leader who told us, hey, if you don't get the COVID shot, you're going to have a winter of death. Hey, if you get the COVID shot, though, COVID will be over forever. And it just extends across his entire administration. They have proven time after time they're not to be trusted. But we are. See you Tuesday.